My co-panelists did bring it out. Viksit Bharat, some of the yardstick that we need to meet are a $30 trillion economy. And $30 trillion economy is possible in case industries play up. It is possible in case our armed forces provide the secure environment that is required for the nation to progress. So this dialogue between industry and armed forces, I think my compliments to FICCI to have organized this, to have given this platform so that so many officers are here and we can share our views and industries, and very nicely put across by Mr. Ashok just before me, the challenges that of course you all are facing, and we face those challenges too. So these are good forums when we can articulate our views and find a pragmatic way forward. So what I'll do this morning is very briefly touch upon 4 issues that I feel are important for us moving ahead. That is the industry and the security forces. I will touch upon the geopolitical landscape as to how it impacts both of us. We talked about the changing character of warfare very briefly. Mr. Vinod Sai just did mention about it. So I will elaborate upon it a little more. I will also touch upon Operation Sindur, although you all know it as well as I do, but I'll just tell you certain things that the military planners did and certain lessons that I feel are important as far as the industry and the armed forces are concerned. And finally, a few recommendations. I've been making them. A lot of it you know, but I'll just try and summarize them. And I think Ms. Jyoti did speak about some of them. And of course, I will try and articulate a few more. As far as the geopolitical landscape is concerned, the great power rivalry is playing out between the United States and China. So United States getting more and more transactional. So you can see, especially with the current sort of dispensation which is there. On the other hand, China, which till now was looking at hiding its capabilities and buying time, now wants to be on a high table everywhere. 3 things that Chinese, we need to be very, very cognizant, the 2 of us, the trend lines that I would sort of flag. 1, it is indeed the manufacturing hub of the world. It takes a lot to get out of what is not available in China. They produce it in bulk, they produce it, whatever you may say. When it comes down to L1, you always look at something which is cheaply available. So how do you get over that trap is one issue that the armed forces as well as the industry needs to be cognizant about. Second is the technology. So you all would have read, I'm sure, very, very learned audience here, that there was a study carried out by Australian Strategic Policy Institute which stated they've been following 64 technologies, key technologies, what Ms. Jyoti talked about, artificial intelligence, quantum, etc., etc. So US was a leader in 60 out of the 64 in early 2000s, 56 out of 64, now China is the lead. So they are taking massive steps there. So technology is the second thing. Third is the rare earth. That's the new gold, I would say, for anything that is niche. They have actually a monopoly, and the way they are going about it, it's going to be very, very challenging in future in case we do not take adequate steps. The second issue with respect to geopolitical landscape is the rising protectionism. So just last evening I was listening to the news, and 2 news back to back. One with respect to the iPhone manufacturing sort of coming down to India, and how China is now trying to ensure that whatever, whosoever were experts in that are not made available to India, so as to stymie our progress. So nobody would want that India should keep progressing in the manner, IDDM that we talked about. They want us to be dependent. Protectionism is something we need to be, again, very, very watchful about, and we need to take steps to ensure how do we sort of get over that. A second, of course, when we looked at the deal that the Trump administration is wanting to get, again, they are looking at their interests first. We looked at a globalized world order, say, sometime just about less than 5 years ago. We thought the barriers were breaking. But come Brexit, and thereafter things have actually changed. Now there is a lot of protectionism which is going on. The third issue that, as far as the geopolitical landscape is concerned, is the increasing use of war as an instrument of state policy. So, till 22nd of February 22, one did not quite think that a conventional war, in the sense that it happened, say, in 1971, or the Israeli wars that we looked at, or the world wars we looked at, whether such a thing could happen. And now it's all happening. So you have the strong leaders who do not hesitate in using force as an instrument of state policy. So the chances have increased manifold. So what is the bottom line as far as the geopolitical landscape is concerned for the industry and for us? Firstly, for the industry and for us, the locus of control as a nation has to be internal. We have to have all the critical items that we require, technology that we require, the products that we require internal. I will talk about it a little more ahead. And of course, to be a nation to be reckoned with and to deter your adversaries, you need to have sharp, hard military power. Without that, it's all, a fantasy that you'll be able to stand up to yourself. Let me now briefly touch upon the second issue that I was mentioning in the morning, was the changing character of warfare. The nature of warfare has not changed. It has a political dimension. It is about violence. It's about imposing your will onto the other one. But the character, as we are seeing, is changing. We talked about use of autonomous weapon systems, quantum computing, space. Your OODA loop is actually shortening. Things that we could actually, were in the realm of fantasy a few years ago, we thought it was only like a video game which would be there, is actually playing out. Things like spider web, the way the operation was prosecuted, the amount of technology that was used, the amount of civil industry minds that were used, and whole of nation approach. So those things were sort of unheard of a few, I would say, years ago, and it is all happening now. There is an added importance to kinetic, non-contact, and long-range precision. There is added sort of importance that is playing out in the battlefield, non-contact, non-kinetic. That is your cyber operations, information warfare, that they are equally important going ahead. And this is, if I was to say, it's the 5th generation sort of warfare which is there. So the question arises, are the future wars going to be 5th generation type of wars that will be fought? That is, a computer nerd maybe perhaps sitting in one part of the country and controlling the entire thing. Will it happen that way? The answer, in my understanding, is a big no, at least in the Indian context. We have hostile borders. So as far as Indian armed forces are concerned, we have to be prepared to fight all the 5 generations. The first generation being something like a trench warfare, the way World War types. So that's actually happening on our, I would say, on the LC. The second generation warfare about artillery duels, that is indeed happening. The third generation warfare, maneuveristic, it's happening in the high seas, it's happening, it may not be, war may not be there, but maneuvering is of course going on there. It's happening against China. The fourth generation warfare, wherein there is a use of non-state actors, that is also happening. So India has to be prepared for all the 5 generations of warfare. The Indian armed forces have to be ready now, and they have to be future ready for the type of warfare that I just talked about a little earlier, wherein a lot of technology is used, lot of innovations are used. So we have to be prepared for both the types of warfare. Let me now touch upon my understanding of Operation Sindur, and I'll be very brief because it's all known to you all. And I'll come out with a few lessons that are important as far as Operation Sindur is concerned. So, of course, Operation Sindur, the defining thing was that leadership, the strategic messaging by leadership was unambiguous. You cross our red lines and there would be action. There would be punitive action if required. There is no scope of absorbing the pain the way we did a few years ago. So that is one important message that stands out loud and clear. Second, as far as Operation Sindur was concerned, the planning and selection of targets was based on a lot of data that was collected, using technology and, I would say, human intelligence. So a total of 21 targets were actually sort of identified, out of which 9 targets we thought would be prudent to engage. When we looked at those 9 targets, and it was not that the 9 targets that we decided upon was a decision which did not change. Till the last day, the targets, there was eye on the targets that were there, and we kept monitoring the locations. It was only on the final day or the final hour that the decision was taken that these 9 targets would be engaged. A considered decision was taken. It will be a tri-services approach to send the right message that we indeed are an integrated force. So, Army, Navy, Air Force all played their part as far as targeting was concerned. We saw various, or we are seeing various conflicts playing out. So an important consideration was that we should always be on top of the escalation ladder. When we reach a political military objective, we should try and put a stop to it. So a lot of naysayers say, why did we stop now? So war is easy to initiate, but it's very difficult to control. So I would say that was a very masterly stroke that was played to stop the war at an appropriate time. And this time, when the target engagement started, how we controlled the escalation, it was only the terrorist targets that were engaged in the first phase and information warfare. A message was sent that we have only engaged your militant targets, the terrorist targets, we would like to put an end to it. However, Pakistani side decided that no, they wanted to, sort of come equal. They engaged our military targets. So in step 2 of the escalation, a very strong message was sent by engaging their military targets in a manner that on 10th of May, there was a message from the military operations, Pakistan, that they would want a ceasefire. To ensure that we end the conflict on top of the escalation ladder. And thereafter, of course, it is all about information warfare, how the narrative shape out. That's another domain that could be discussed. And the reason why this particular thing happened, because there was a punch that was ready, and they realized that hidden punch, in case that comes through, Pakistan would be in a very, very bad condition. So that was the reason why they asked for a ceasefire. Of course, another important thing during Op Sindur was air defense and how it panned out. So it is good, bad. We could do a lot. Mr. Ashok did talk about it, that some of our indigenous systems performed well. Some did not perform very well too. So it's of course a cat and mouse game, as I was mentioning outside. We need to be at it. This time, thankfully, our population centers were not quite addressed. In the next round, we have to be prepared for that. And for that, more and more air defense, more and more counter rocket, artillery, drone sort of a system has to be prepared, for which we have to move very, very fast. So few lessons that I thought I must flag as far as Operation